Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome back to Bariatrics and Beyond, brought to you by Elias Ortiz and Company, the podcast where we talk about life before, during, and after bariatric surgery. So get comfy, grab yourself a drink and a healthy snacky snack. And if you don't know what a healthy snack is, let me tell you, you are tuned into the right episode today, because we have our bariatric nutritionist all the way from Tijuana, Mexico, Dr. Carmen. Welcome, Dr. Carmen.
So, so happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us on the podcast. This is your first time on the podcast, but usually we do our lives on Instagram and Facebook. So we always have a pretty cool interaction with the guests. But today it's just you and I. So I thought we would basically start from the beginning and let everyone get to know you. So Dr. Carmen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. This is kind of weird. I don't like, usually we talk about food, but, well, I'm a doctor. I'm a medical doctor. I studied in Tijuana. I'm from Tijuana, and I went to medical school in Tijuana. I went to all other grade school and all that in San Diego. A lot of people ask me, why do you speak English so well? It's because I studied in San Diego, and then I came to the university in Mexico, in Tijuana. I finished medical school, and while I was in medical school, I started working with my professor, surgery professor. He's a bariatric surgeon, and I used to translate his slides and translate his presentation. So that's how I started getting into bariatrics and understanding. And this is back in 1998, when it was just the lap band and open gastric bypass and other type of procedures. So I started learning from there. I finished medical school. I did not want to do a residency because my internship I felt it was very hard. Just for me, it wasn't for me. So I decided to do a postgraduate course on nutrition, and I continued working with bariatric patients. So I've been in the field since 1998. I've seen the evolution of the procedures. I know a lot of bariatric surgeons because when I started working with bariatrics, there were maybe 100 people, 100 surgeons in all of Mexico doing bariatric surgery. So, that's kind of how I got into this. And I've been learning a lot since then from my patients, and just talking to patients, I think, is the best way to learn, because this is a very new field in medicine, I could say. And that's how you really get your experience, by just asking questions and
Definitely.
talking.
Yeah, so you are well versed in the bariatric community, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of changes over the years too, because there's always a new procedure and that kind of thing. So I'm sure you've seen it all, which is really kind of cool.
It's really cool. I started working with the lap band, and people remember the lap band. I'm not a huge fan of that anymore, and it's basically a device. So it evolved. Everything has evolved a lot. So then I saw the sleeve gastrectomy, and then we started working a lot with laparoscopic gastric bypass. And then there's other procedures that I've seen that have been done, and then, they're not being done anymore. The gastric plication, that's not being done anymore. Endoscopic procedures. And it's interesting, I think, that every time it's evolving, but sometimes in the nutritional aspect, we don't evolve with that either. And our knowledge of obesity does come a lot from our knowledge from bariatric surgery. So I think that's something that I like to implement. I like to work on that. I started doing lifestyle medicine. So I have my diploma from Harvard Medical School. I did lifestyle medicine there, culinary medicine. I also did cooking classes. So I do have another course on cooking, culinary education. And it's interesting, when I started getting into food versus nutrition, a lot of things change, because I think we always try to look at the way that we eat as something very structured and something that has to be prescribed, especially special groups like people that have bariatric surgery. So it's a lot of, can I eat this? How much? When? And I think it's a lot easier when you learn about food, what food is about, you can make your own choices. And
Yes.
you learn how to interact with food a lot easier than if it's being prescribed to you or if you're just following a diet. So yeah, that's a lot of
Absolutely.
what I do.
Yeah, and I definitely want to dive into I want to dive into that later on this episode about how food is more of a lifestyle versus a diet and a reward, So we'll talk about that a little later on. But let's start from the beginning, because a lot of people, when they think about having weight loss surgery, there's that pre-op diet. There's a diet that you got to go on beforehand, and a lot of people think, oh, I have to lose. They get told from their doctors, oh, first, before we can approve you, you need to lose 50, 60, 70 pounds, So our program is a little bit different than that, but we do have a pre-op diet. And can you explain, for some people who are really scared of the pre-op diet, what the pre-op diet basically entails and why is it so important, to have it down before surgery?
So the main reason we have a pre-op diet is to reduce the size of the liver. That is like the main purpose of it. And
Yeah, I
that's what
promise you guys, it is not to test your willpower, because I'm sure some people are like, oh, this is just to test my willpower. It's not. There's an actual medical reason for it.
there is. And there's also a lot of adipose tissue, which is fatty tissue inside of the abdominal cavity. Sometimes when there's a lot of obesity, when there's, a high body mass index. So the intention of this diet is to reduce the possibilities of having a complication from having a large liver. Usually when there is a large fatty liver, it's very easy to break. People, you've eaten liver, right? I mean, if you've eaten liver in the past, you know what the consistency is. And when it's fatty, it gets even more like grainy. It can be cut through very easily, and it can bleed, and it can cause a lot of disturbances for the surgeon.
Mhm.
So what the main reason is to have a healthy liver and to have an abdominal cavity that is easy to work on. So there's a lot of research that has been done around the pre-op diet and what is the ideal way of doing this. So there's a lot of people that will say, well, a very low calorie diet, a keto diet, just protein shakes, just, eating certain foods. And my take on the pre-op diet is really having or eating foods that do not promote inflammation, which are ultra processed products, artificial sweeteners. We've talked about this. Alcohol, definitely. Alcohol is something that we need to avoid because we know the effects that alcohol has on the liver. It gets really bad. But the actual weight loss is not something that we're looking for. We're looking for less fat, less fatty tissue, a liver that is easy to work on. So my take on it, which is very different from a lot of groups that do it, because everybody, has their own different ways of suggesting it. But the research says what the research says is that a very low calorie diet can sometimes lead a person to not being nutritionally fit for the. So we really need to take care of a lot of things. We need to make sure that our patients have that they're strong and they're well nourished to go through a procedure, but that they also have an abdominal cavity that is easy to work on. So my take on it is just avoiding foods that can cause inflammation. And just avoiding, saturated fats, avoiding ultra processed products, avoiding alcohol. All of that can actually give you a healthy, or can lead you to a healthy pre-op diet.
Right. And it is really important, because lots of different, bariatric surgeons and companies, they all have their own pre-op diet. So you guys, it is really important that if you're having surgery with us, you stick to our pre-op diet. Or if you're having surgery with someone else, stick to their pre-op diet. So you have to stick to the rules that your surgeon has given you. With us, you are given the diet word for word, food for food. I basically, in a nutshell, I think just keep it simple, you guys. It's lean, think lean, green, and clean. Just that's basically how you want to approach the pre-op diet. Some people get really scared, like, oh, can I have this? Can't I have this? if you're that kind of person, you're thinking too hard about it. You know what I mean? And usually it's only depending on your BMI. For most people, they fall under the 2-week category. So usually it's just a 2-week diet. My BMI was quite high, so I had to do it for like 5 weeks. But for most people, it's 2 weeks, and just keep it simple, you guys. Lean, green, and clean. But yeah, we will give you the entire, how many grams of protein you need, all that kind of stuff. So it is all written out for you, so it should not be too daunting with the pre-op diet. So thank you for clarifying that, because I know, like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just on shakes. Oh, I can only drink shakes for 2 weeks. Like ours is not that. Like you definitely need to get your nutrients in and be fit for surgery.
And I think that's why I like to work more on food knowledge than on very specific nutritional indications. Because once you understand food, you don't need to ask, can I eat this?
Yeah.
Can I eat that? You're going to know, you're going to know, oh, this has fiber, this has vitamins, this is something that I can eat.
Yeah, and they should be eating. So now let's go post-op. So that people have done their pre-op diet and they've done a great pre-op diet. And you guys, Dr. Ortiz knows if you haven't. If you get there and your liver is not where it needs to be and there is a potential risk for surgery or a complication, he will not operate. So do not cheat on the pre-op diet, because he will always find out. But okay, so patients have come, they've had a successful pre-op diet, they've had a successful surgery. Now it's time to go home. And what happens when they go home? How do they? I think this is a lot of people's fear is, what do I do now? How do I eat? Because obviously we didn't just become obese overnight. This is like a lifetime of struggle with nutrition. Is a huge role in obesity. So I think people get really scared of how to eat, but there is a post-op diet, right? And after your surgery, you will meet with Dr. Carmen, and you take all the patients through the post-op diet phase. So there is a diet that you need to follow post-op. And again, it is really good training on how to kind of get your mind right in, the right mind frame. But also, it's also very important medically, because our stomachs are still healing, right? So do you want to just quickly explain the pre-op diet phases and why they're really important, and not to skip phases and that kind of thing?
Yeah, the post-op diet is basically a transition. You're transitioning from clear liquids to solids because, like Kayla said, you need to give your stomach your space to heal. The less pressure, the easier it's going to heal. So we start out with clear liquids. That's the first phase. And it is very important that you stick to at least 1 week of clear liquids, 1 week, not less, no less than that. It could be a little bit more depending on how you're feeling, but no less than 1 week. So it's basically just, liquids. You're trying to still stay well hydrated. So I like to recommend infused water. Infused water is a very good alternative to any type of flavored juices. A lot of people will buy those flavorings that have artificial sweeteners. I definitely do not recommend artificial sweeteners. So one of the things about bariatric surgery is that your taste buds change. And I mean, everybody here that is listening that has had surgery knows that that is something that, you feel immediately after surgery, that once you taste something sweet, it's very sweet. So what happens with artificial sweeteners is that they stimulate your palate a lot more than sugar does. So like between 200 and 700 times more of sweetness artificial sweeteners have than sugar. So it stimulates your palate and it makes you crave more sugar. It makes you crave more flavor. So that's why we're very against all of these artificial sweeteners and artificial, sometimes they put in these drops to have a little bit of flavor in their water. My recommendation is that you infuse it with fruits, with herbs, like something like ginger can be very helpful for inflammation. So there's different ways of trying to, or of getting flavor from your water without using these artificial sweeteners. So that's one thing. It's hydration. And another thing that we also recommend is, the broths, the bone broth, and this has been proven to help towards healing, to promote healing. Another thing is Jello. So I always recommend that instead of buying the flavored Jello, if you buy unflavored gelatin and you make your own juices, you can make your own Jello, and it's going to be a lot easier. Maybe we can have that recipe too.
Yeah.
So just trying to keep it as natural as possible without stimulating your palate a lot with all of these artificial flavors. That's going to be a really good way of going into the pre-op diet without having cravings.
Yeah.
So the next stage is we're still on liquids. The second week, we start with thicker liquids. You can have smoothies. You can have your protein shake. I always recommend having smoothies made from a variety of fruits and vegetables. We do have some recipes already for you guys. So it's basically just combining whatever colors of the rainbow you like in a smoothie, because the wider variety of fruits and vegetables, the wider variety of nutrients. Our number one source of vitamins and minerals are fruits and vegetables. So if you're making them in a smoothie every single morning, it's kind of like you're drinking a multivitamin, which is wonderful, with fiber, with all of these other nutrients that fruits and vegetables can give us. And then we go on to the third phase, which is soft foods. So we're transitioning slowly: clear liquids, full liquids, soft foods. And there I also recommend that you stick to plant foods. I'm a huge fan of a plant-based diet, and I'll tell you why right now. But when you combine a variety of plant foods, you combine a variety of nutrients. So if you start with soft foods, one of the best foods that we have in the whole world are legumes. Legumes are beans, lentils, chickpeas, peas. These are great because they have fiber, they have protein, they have minerals, they have vitamins, they have a whole lot of nutrients that we need. Plus, they're cheap, they're very easy to store, they have a long shelf life, they're very versatile, so you can prepare them in different ways. You can make a sweet dish, you can make, you can make a soup, you can make a salad. They're very versatile. I always recommend that you have cooked legumes in your refrigerator. I always have some for, whatever. You can make hummus, you can make a salad, you can make a soup, you can make a creamy soup. So during the third phase, when you're, with soft foods, it's a very easy way of having, like, hummus or beans, like mashed beans, and then you can combine them with roasted vegetables and change the flavor. You can put different herbs and change the flavor. So that's something that can be very fun also to make. And then the fourth week, it's a normal diet. So we go on to solid foods, and basically there you can eat everything. Your body can tolerate all foods, but here we do have to be very careful with what we recommend, because everybody is different. And then people will say, don't eat lettuce the fourth week after your surgery. And, maybe people can eat lettuce and some others can't. So it's this last stage. It's more about trial and error, I always think just stick to plant foods, stick to fish, eggs, and dairy and plant foods. And you shouldn't have much trouble with the tolerance. And from there, you can start seeing, what agrees with me and what does not, which is going to be very different with what happens with, the person that is next to me, because everyone is different. So it really is about, trial and error, trying different foods, seeing what agrees with you, seeing what you like, because your palate changes also, your cravings change also. So it's really just learning how to individualize your own eating patterns, but according to your needs, not to what a piece of paper says. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of, handing out diets indiscriminately and saying, oh, you have to eat 3 ounces every 5 hours, or you have to eat 8 ounces every 3 hours, or whatever. Because everyone is different.
Yes.
You know that.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone is different. Everyone's goal is different. Everyone's starting point is different. And, so there's so many different variables that go into weight loss, I think. Now, let's talk about life, bariatrics and beyond, life after bariatric surgery, like how to turn this into a lifestyle and not just another diet. And like how do we not use food as like a reward or a restriction? How do we just, enjoy life, enjoy food, and live a healthy lifestyle? What would your tips be for that?
Well, I think one of the things that make people not make this a lifestyle, it's that we focus too much on weight loss.
Yeah.
and it's always about the number on the scale, and you have a goal of 100 pounds, or I don't know, this many pounds. And I think that really takes away the possibility of you enjoying a lifestyle when your main goal is a number. So I think we need to change our goals first of all, and
And our
that's
mindset and our views on weight loss. Yeah.
yeah, so our goal should not be being thin or having a certain amount of pound or losing a certain amount of pounds. It should be being strong and being well nourished. So
Yeah.
once you change that mindset from I need to be thin, which is I think something that the medical field has contributed to a lot
Yeah.
also, because it's always about the number on the scale, and it's even called weight loss surgery,
Yeah.
which the main focus is not really weight loss. So if you change that and think about it as, I need to be strong and I need to be well nourished, then the way that the ways that you're going to get to that are going to be very different than if you're just thinking about I need to be thin. So another thing, it's body composition, it's nutritional status. We need to think about that. We also need to think about behaviors. Sometimes we have or we know that there are certain behaviors that we need to change, but it's very difficult to change them. And I'm talking about, eating a lot of sweets. A lot of people are kind of addicted, or I don't want to say the word addicted, but they're very inclined towards eating sweets. Another behavior could be grazing or binge eating. All of these behaviors that you have recognized that have kind of interrupted your progress in other treatments. That's something that you need to focus on too. Changing these behaviors. One of the things that bariatric surgery does, it's not just that it has, it's a small stomach that holds less food, but it does have a lot of changes in your brain, in your hormones that help you change, that these are tools to help you change behaviors. So we can focus on that. So it's body composition, nutritional status, behaviors. Your environment plays a huge role in your decisions. So the people that you surround yourself with, everything that you have in your pantry and your refrigerator, what you buy at the supermarket, your immediate environment, if you can change that, that's going to be wonderful too. And the other thing that I recommend is health literacy. So once you start learning about health, once you really get interested in what is going on in your body, how is my surgery working now as opposed to how my body was working before the surgery? How does food work? What does it have? Once you start getting interested in health, you start being a little bit more conscious about what you are putting into your body. And you're making conscious decisions and you're making informed decisions. So that gives you a lot of power. And I think that empowerment is a lot more important than being thin or losing weight or having a goal. You have to understand that you make your own choices. You know what you put into your body. And sometimes we're just thinking, oh, this has 100 calories or this has 60 carbs and 2 grams of sugar or whatever. But if you're really thinking about food as the context, of it, it gives me energy, it gives me joy, it gives me pleasure, it connects me with my family, it connects me to my heritage, then you start making better choices. So I think that we need to change our mindset. And then when we talk specifically about lifestyle, this has been researched a lot, and I told you I have a training in lifestyle medicine. So there's 6 areas of our life that we need to keep in balance, not just the food, but food, movement, stress resilience, our sleep patterns, everything that you put into your body. So a lot of substances can be toxic after surgery, so we need to pay attention to that, and your social connection. So the people that you surround yourself with play a huge role in your decisions. Your patterns also play a huge role in your health, your stress resilience. So everything we talk about in our class, as far as life, our goals and lifestyle, and it's different for everyone too, because sometimes, maybe you're off in your sleep patterns, but you're working on your exercise routine. So, we can kind of see when we lay it out that way, we can kind of see what areas can I work on right now, like today, what is easy today for me to do, and set goals and accomplish those goals. And then once you accomplish them, it becomes a lot easier. So that's what we talk about. That's what we mean when we talk about lifestyle versus going on a diet. Because if you're going on a diet, you're just following, what a
Yep.
piece of paper says, and
Yep.
that's it. If you don't have that piece of paper with you anymore, you don't have anything else to rely on. But if you have the knowledge,
Hmm.
then, I mean, you don't need that piece of paper. You know what is good for you.
Yeah, because we want this to be not just about weight. Like it's a body, mind, and soul. Like everything has to change. And if you're on a diet, you are miserable. You know what I mean? You might be losing pounds, the scale might be going down, but everything else around you is bloody awful. Like everything, you're miserable. Like you're always feeling hungry, you're feeling deprived, you're in a crappy mood, like nothing. So it's really not that important. That number on the scale is not that important. We want this to be like all the way around healthier mindset, healthier, just life in general. And I think, yeah, we have to start realizing also like what does my mind and my craving want versus what does my body need. And a lot of the time when we give in to the cravings, we actually don't, we feel worse because then you feel the guilt and then you actually physically feel crappy because you're putting all these things that your body doesn't need. So I think, yeah, it's definitely more of it's just a whole, it's a whole. It's all, and they're all connected. So you really have to get your mind in the right place.
Exactly. It's all connected. When we talk about, for example, you want to talk about stress resilience. When you're under a lot of stress and you're not handling it properly, you reach out for food.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very possible that you're not exercising because exercise usually helps you with stress. And then, you're not sleeping well because if you're eating all of this food that, kind of it gives you reflux or it gives you other symptoms, then it affects your sleep. And that, and then it becomes like it just these bad habits are
Mm-hmm.
touching every single part of the lifestyle wheel. And, I show you guys in my classes, the different areas of lifestyle. So, it's very easy to spiral down. And I think we all go through that. I go through that a
Yeah.
lot too. You kind of all of a sudden you feel like, oh, I'm not exercising, I'm not sleeping well, I'm eating all of this junk, I haven't been home for a while because I've been traveling. And
Mm-hmm.
once you start, and then it's very easy to spiral down and it's very hard to get back on track.
Yeah.
But once you don't blame yourself, you're in that position of I'm not at a good point right now. It's very important not to blame yourself, not to say, oh, why did I do this? Why did I do that? Just, there's another opportunity. The next meal, the next time I'm going to put something into my mouth, it's going to be something that is going to contribute to my health. Just if just think of it that way, and not thinking, oh, I'm going to start my diet on Monday
Yeah.
or tomorrow is another day. And it's always just, in an hour, I'm going to put something in my mouth. I just have to make sure that it's something that is going to contribute to my health.
Yeah,
Some,
exactly.
so I think that sometimes those decisions do come a lot from guilt or from judgment to yourself. So that's also a thing that we need to address after after.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not like you're never saying don't ever eat a candy bar again. You know what I mean? Like you never want to be restriction. You do want to always enjoy everything. I think we just have to learn moderation and then but also learn what makes you feel good because you might think you want that candy bar, but then it makes you feel pretty crappy after. So I think the more you get into nutrition, the more you actually start realizing, oh, this I actually don't want it, which is really, really kind of interesting. Um, I see a lot in the Facebook page, a lot of people, they do focus so much on that number on the scale. And they go, I haven't lost weight for 3 weeks. I've stalled. Stalls are completely normal, right? Like
Right.
weight loss isn't just like it's up, it's down, it's around, around. It's a journey, you guys. Um, and so I always see a lot of people go, oh, I've stalled. What should I do? And I think when people see that maybe the scale hasn't moved for a while, they're thinking they're automatically doing something wrong, and then I see a lot of people go, just go back to the pre-op diet and just, go back to clearly because I mean like that, we need to get out of that mindset of having to go back on a diet to see the scale move again. I always tell people, guys, if you're just stick to the plan, if you're nourishing your body, if you're getting all the things that your body needs, just keep going because consistency is what adds up. But if you think you're doing something wrong and then you jump off and you go back on this, you're back to yo-yo dieting, So I think we really, really, really have to, like not worry about that number. If you just focus on being consistently, your goal is to consistently change and to better your lifestyle, you can't go wrong. Like you can't go wrong. The scale might not move in a week or two or whatever. That's A-okay because all around you're winning, you know?
Right. And then there's other things that you can also look into because, sometimes, like you said, it's the scale, but how is your energy?
Yeah.
Are you feeling, you're feeling good with your energy? How is your digestion? How your balance, are they, is it something that you're comfortable with? How is your snoring? How are you sleeping at night? So there's a lot of other things that you can, talk to yourself about and say, oh, okay, maybe I'm not losing weight, but I had a really good night's sleep, but I could, today I went up the full flight of stairs instead of just walking three and getting winded. So there's a lot of other things that we need to pay attention to in our day-to-day lives. If you do want to measure if you're having success with whatever you're doing, not just the scale.
100%.
The scale is going to vary all the time.
All the time. And there's so many different variables to that number too. Is it water weight? Are we bloated? Are we swollen? You know what I mean? There's so many variables to that number. It really doesn't make sense. But yeah, there are other ways to measure your success. Now, something I really want to talk to you about because you are quite plant-based. You are plant-based forward in the way you like to eat. And I think a lot of us, especially, coming from me, like I love eating meat. You know what I mean? I when I first heard that, I'm like, I'm not going to be a vegetarian. But a lot of people don't realize what exactly plant-based means. And I love the way you explain it. So can you explain that to people?
Sure. Yeah, plant-based, when you hear the term plant-based, people think, oh, no, I'm not going to eat animal. I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to stop eating animals. But there's a difference between plant-based, vegan, and vegetarian. So vegan and vegetarian mainly is excluding. So when you exclude animals from or any type of animal product from your eating patterns, that's being vegan. And veganism, veganism, that's how you say it. It stems from an ideology. It stems from moral principles or from ethics because of animal harm. And I think that is a beautiful way of choosing how to lead your life. I'm not vegan myself, but I do admire people that have taken that have made that decision. So that's veganism. You're excluding. Vegetarianism, there's different types. So there's pescatarian and there's ovo-lacto-vegetarianism, which you exclude a certain group of animals, but you do include fish or eggs or dairy or just, plants, but it's not it's not as strict as veganism. Now, plant-based is just eating plants regardless of your animal intake. So if you want to eat beef, pork, chicken, that's perfect. But what's important is that you balance that out with plants. So it's just about eating more. It's about including, not excluding. So veganism and vegetarianism is all about excluding. This is about including plants in your life. If you want to continue eating the amount of animals that you're eating, that's perfect. But I think it's very important that you get most of your nutrients from plant foods. And with people that have bariatric surgery, it's a lot easier too because because of their consistency. It's going to be easier to digest, easier to eat, easier to prepare, easier to get nutrients from because you can eat a larger portion. Let's say if we're comparing lentils or chicken, you will be able to eat a larger portion of lentils than chicken. So in the long run, you're going to get more nutrition from those lentils because you were able to eat a little bit more of them. So, there's many reasons why I recommend plant-based eating pattern. But specifically for people that have bariatric surgery, I always recommend that you try to get most of your nutrients from that because it's just easier. It's easier to eat. You know that, right? It's easier to eat beans than beef.
Yeah, it's more tolerable on your little new belly.
Well, no, I just wanted to say that I started on with this eating pattern for myself because when I took up like a sabbatical when I got married, and when I was kind of sick. I was I turned 35 and I was sick. I was getting sick, and I knew I had I was gaining weight, and I knew that I just had to do something with my diet, and I started just eating plants. I started doing that myself, and I saw a huge difference in my skin, in my hair, in my weight, and in all my life. So I just started getting a lot more into that and researching it. And then that's when I went to do all of my other training in culinary medicine. And I started really getting into it, but it was for a personal reason.
Yeah.
So that's why for me, it's very important that people make a lifestyle out of a values, a set of values. For me, it came from a set of values, not from a diet. It came from, I want to feel healthier. I was feeling really bad. I'm feeling really good now. I want to continue feeling this. So I think that's something that does not motivate us when we're just sticking to a diet plan. Your motivation is, oh, I'm eating 8 ounces of this and the scale should be this number, and we're not having that, it's just numbers that we're looking at. But when it's really coming from your knowledge, from your conscious, from your decisions, it's completely different because you want to do it because you want to feel better.
Yeah. It's like you want to, not you need to. Because when you want to do something, you're going to make it work. But when you need to do something, you drag your feet out. It just makes sense. Now, speaking of nutrients, can we talk a bit about vitamins? Because I know a lot of people think, oh, bariatric surgery, I need to be on vitamins for the rest of my life. So can you tell us, like, within the first year, what do we need to be taking? What should we be taking? And then how, and do we need to be on vitamins for the rest of our life?
Okay, so the first thing that we need to understand is that our number one source of nutrition is always going to be our food, always. So if you are just relying on vitamins and the food that you are eating is not helping you nutrition wise, you're still going to have nutritional deficiencies. So we can't rely 100% on vitamins. Vitamins should be, what they're called supplements. A complement to what we are eating, but our number one source of nutrition should always be our food. So that's one thing. Another thing is that because of the way that the gastrointestinal tract is now set, there's going to be lack of nutrients because of the amount of food that people are eating is now going to be a lot lower. So that means that the amount of nutrients is going to be lower too. So portion sizes or, total ingestion, that's a lot lower. So that means that we need a whole set of multivitamins. That's why you recommend multivitamins. Another thing is that depending on the type of surgery that you had is the type of malabsorption that you have. So there are very specific deficiencies depending on the procedure that you had because it's the part of the gastrointestinal tract that was excluded. So that's another thing. We have specific vitamins for specific procedures. And then the other one is pre-existing conditions. Sometimes if you have an eating pattern before your surgery, if you were used to eating a lot of products, not getting all of these foods that were helping you be nourished, there can be deficiencies before the surgery that sometimes are not detected, and they can get really bad in the post-op. So that's another reason why we recommend these vitamins. So those are the 3 main reasons. And also, taking omeprazole, that when you have the surgery, it's recommended that you take these acid blockers for a few months. And that also, you do need gastric acid to absorb a lot of these vitamins. So that's why we also need to take these supplements. So there's a lot of reasons why you definitely need supplements the first year after your surgery. So what we need, vitamin D is definitely something that is recommended because about 90% of people that get bariatric surgery already have a vitamin D deficiency. We're not going to be taking vitamin D, quantifying vitamin D in lab work, because we already know this is something that is very common. So vitamin D, everybody needs that, 3,000 units at least. Then we need a multivitamin. There's people that already have a multivitamin that they've been taking that they're comfortable with. If you have already a multivitamin that you like, you can just take a double dose. And then we have bariatric multivitamins, which there are a lot of brands of those that have really high doses of certain nutrients. Now, after 1 year, your body starts absorbing more from your supplements and from your food, and you also start eating a little bit more. So taking those supplements for more than 1 year can actually make you go over on certain nutrients. I don't recommend that you take them for more than 1 year. Usually a regular multivitamin after 1 year will suffice. And then we have the very specific vitamins for the different procedures. B12 is the one that everybody has to take. They remove part of the stomach that helps absorb it. So it has to be either in a shot or in a sublingual tablet. We talk about that. And then we also have the other procedures that exclude part of the small bowel, where iron is absorbed and calcium is absorbed. So these minerals also have to be supplemented. And then we have all of these, like the SADIs, that is a much larger procedure as far as malabsorption, where we also need to take liposoluble vitamins, which are A, D, E, and K. So, you do have to be very specific with your intake, depending on the type of surgery that you had. We talk about that in our class, and you also get the very specific indications when you have your surgery done.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all. Just it all
Exactly.
depends. Okay, now Dr. Carmen, let's talk about protein, right? So in all over social media and all over the media, there's so many, I think, especially now with the bariatric community, so many products are geared towards bariatric patients. High protein shakes. Oh, this protein brownie, it's got 30 grams of protein. These protein chips, everything. If it says protein on the packet, it must be good, right?
Yes, cereal, everything.
Right. So let's talk about all of these protein products versus actual protein. And can these protein products, I feel like they, and then also circling back, all these implements I see on TikTok all the time. Let me show you how I make my protein shake coffee extravaganza that's only got 200 calories, or, it's got 40 grams of protein. And, these people are putting protein shakes, and they're putting protein cookies and everything to make this, beautiful, healthy protein, product, but it's filled with garbage, let's be honest. So can we debunk some of those, all these influencers that are trying to push all these protein products, honestly, because they're probably sponsored by these companies because they're getting paid for it. So can we, talk about protein products versus actual protein, and where do we draw the line?
So protein is one of those nutrients that we lose after bariatric surgery. And protein, we need it for structure, we need it for muscle, we need it for basically, anything that holds us together, we need protein. So because of the malabsorption and because of the small amount of food that we're eating, sometimes that is the nutrient that is sacrificed first. So that's why we have to pay special attention to our protein intake. Now, again, our number one source of nutrition should always be our food. So we do need to look for foods that can provide us with the protein that we need. Sometimes we think, lentils are a good source of protein, as an example, but, they have carbs. So that's also something that kind of sets us back from getting protein from our plant foods. If we're looking for protein from our plant foods, it is, we know that it's not, there's a lot of these plant foods that can't be considered complete protein because their amino acid profile is not complete. But once we start combining plant foods, let's say, lentils with quinoa, then we have a complete amino acid profile. We could get protein from there, and it's very soft and it's very easy to eat. So that's something that we can get protein from. And then we have, legumes, combination of legumes with grains. And then we have, like fish. Fish is a very easy thing to eat. Not everybody eats it though, but it's also a very easy way to get protein. Now, during the first weeks, we know that it's very difficult to eat anything. You're basically just drinking. So we do recommend protein supplements. My recommendation is that you get protein powders that you can complement your food with and not just, a protein food. Usually, if you are buying these protein foods or protein snacks, it's not just the protein. There's a whole bunch of other ingredients that you're consuming that is probably not the best for your health at this moment. You just had surgery. You don't want to be using all of these products. It's kind of like we're pushing a reset button on your body. You want to start with a clean slate. So you want to start as clean eating as possible. So if you buy a pure protein powder, unflavored, you can put that on anything. You can put it in your pancakes. You can put it in your oatmeal. You can put it in your lentil soup and blend it. You can put it in anything. So that would be the easiest way, or the way that I would recommend. Now, there's whey protein, and then there is plant-based protein. Whey protein is the one that has been studied the most in people with bariatric surgery. That's why it's the one that is recommended the most. And I do think that is probably the best way to get protein. If you buy unflavored whey protein powder and put it in your meals and your smoothies and whatever you're eating, you can boost your protein intake. That's one thing. And there's another way, if you have, if you're on the go, if you're not eating a lot of meals, there's other reasons why you can have meal replacements. So meal replacements is another thing that I would recommend. You always just have to make sure that you're getting the amount of protein that you need, because sometimes you'll see these meal replacements that say protein, and that's perfect, but they only have like 11 grams of protein. And then they have all of these other flavors, and, they'll have like 15 grams of carbohydrates, and they'll have all of these other ingredients that your body does not really need at that moment, which is not, it makes it not the ideal type of way of getting protein. So my recommendation would be, if you are using protein products, that it is a pure protein supplement, unflavored, that you're using to add protein to your meals. That would be one. Or if you really need to substitute a meal, which it happens to a lot of us, you can get a protein meal replacement, but make sure that it's a bariatric brand, because these are going to have the amount of protein that you need and the multivitamin profile that you need. So it's not just any type of, meal replacement in the market. I do not recommend bars. I do not recommend cookies. I do not recommend all of these. They're putting protein on everything, cereals and stuff like that.
Yes.
And sometimes it's just, it already had that. Maybe it's like a peanut butter, some type of thing. And peanut butter has protein, and they'll just put, protein, which is, it's still the same. It's still the same product. They just decided to put protein because it does have protein.
Right.
It doesn't say how much. It's not something that, you will benefit a lot more from. So I think we have to be very careful with all of that. If you're getting products, I would recommend just meal replacements that are bariatric, or a high protein, or a protein supplement that is pure protein, pure whey protein. You can also use plant-based proteins, but just make sure that it's a combination of peas, brown rice, and some kind of seed. And that way you can make sure that you have a complete amino acid profile. So it's basically more about the amino acids than the protein itself. People play around with that word a lot.
Yeah. And I think another myth in the bariatric community is that you need to have a protein shake every day. You need I think a lot of people, 3, 4, 5 years post-op, they're like, I have to have my protein shake every single day. Is that true?
It depends on how well you're eating or not, and a lot of these recommendations are also pushed by companies that make these protein meal replacements. I have my own company, and that I have a company that has meal replacements, and we have our supplements. I'm embarrassed to be pushing them constantly on patients. If there's another way of you getting these nutrients, I don't like to do that, but sometimes I'm pushed by these companies. So I think that if you have, if you have a lifestyle that is really fast, and sometimes you don't have time for breakfast, or you don't have time for to make a meal, then it could be a good substitute, because here we have burritos. That's like
your breakfast.
fast meals. And sometimes people won't have breakfast and they'll buy a burrito, or you'll go to McDonald's you'll just go to the drive-through and have something. But if you have a meal replacement, it's at least protein with nutrients. So that would be my recommendation of using a meal substitute.
Awesome. And so before we let you go, you were saying you don't really believe in protein bars and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of us, we have a sweet tooth. So would you share with us a healthy alternative for something sweet that we can all kind of make at home and just have on hand?
Yeah. So that's, if you buy these products, that's what I don't recommend, because sometimes you need to conserve them for shelf life. If you make them yourself, you're going to know that they're not going to last more than 2-3 days in the refrigerator. So if you're making them yourself, what you need is something that can help bind. So that can either be dates, it can be peanut butter, it can be any type of nut butter, it could be almond butter, it could be tahini, it could be any type of nut or seed butter that you like, or dates, because that's what's going to help bind the ball. So, if you think about it that way, you can make your own combinations and you don't need. And then I also recommend that you add something, a grain. So it could be oatmeal. Oatmeal is the easiest. You can also use amaranth. You can use quinoa. And that's only because when you combine them, it makes them, it gives it a little bit more protein, more nutrients. And then you can add a seed. You can add a chia seeds, or you can add flax seeds, or flaxseed powder. And what will actually help you get more protein is a protein powder. So if you get an unflavored protein powder, or a chocolate flavored protein powder, or vanilla flavored protein powder, you can give it a little bit more protein. And it's really easy. Once you have, like that combination, you make them into balls, put them in the refrigerator, and they are done. I could put a recipe, like a very specific recipe,
Yes.
on our Facebook when we do that. And then I know that you will be here soon, so we could work on something in my kitchen.
I would love that. Yeah, I would absolutely love that. When I come next time, which is probably going to be in the next couple of weeks, we will do a cooking show. But for now, let's put up your protein ball recipe. So here it is. So you guys pause to read. And so what, we can just freeze those or keep them in the fridge and then just take them with us, and whenever we need a little sweet treat, that's definitely a better alternative than all these packet products.
Exactly.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Carmen. And I guess in a nutshell, we want this weight loss surgery. We want it to be all about body, mind, and soul. It's not restrictive. It's not, diet and what we can't have. It's all about what we can have and enjoying this new life that we have created for ourselves.
Exactly. Enjoying health. I think once you start enjoying your own health, you don't want to go back to that. And also, if you do go back to it, which is very normal, we're human, you know how to go back, because you know what it takes for you to feel good. And you always want, once you taste it, you're always going to want that.
Cheers. Cheers to that, you guys. Health is wealth. So cheers. Thank you, Dr. Carmen.
Thank you.
And you guys, thank you for sticking around. We will see you next week, where we have our head chief plastic surgeon, Dr. Omar Lazos, on the show. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But for now, thank you so much, and bye from Bariatrics and Beyond.